Hello and welcome to episode 3 of the Balanced Approach podcast, or part 2 of episode 2, Methods to the Madness. So if you're listening to this and you've not listened to an episode before or not listened to episode 2, then I would advise going back to that episode as we covered some really important underpinning, which is quite ironic, principles that will allow you to really get the most out of this episode. So if you haven't listened to that, I'd advise stopping here, going back to episode 2 and then cracking on from there. So one of the things that I mentioned back on the last episode was me trying pretty much every diet under the sun: 5-2, intermittent fasting, keto, low carb, high carb, low fat, high fat, any sort of different diet that you've heard of out there. I've done it probably, and using meal replacement shakes as well, sort of supplements, and that's really important in this episode and links in with one of the questions that I get asked quite a lot, or did get asked quite a lot when I was a PT, was which is the best diet? Which is the best way to lose weight? And that's really tricky to answer, and actually can link into how I mentioned on the last episode that I tried pretty much every diet that there is. Tried high fat, low fat, high carb, low carb, different fasting protocol, supplements. And I mentioned that I'd stick to them for a certain amount of time and then eventually just fall off. They wouldn't really align with my values and goals, and basically found it too tough to stick to. So the reason that I mention this is that actually there's a really simple word that can help people understand why they don't do this. And it's called adherence, which means how well you can stick to something. And it's super important when people are undertaking a diet. You might have seen people who can do these 12, 16-week transformations and do these really extreme protocols where they might be training twice a day, every day, doing a certain or a ridiculous amount of activity, having this really restrictive diet, and then they get these fairly good results at the end of that diet and actually end up reverting back to their old ways and not being able to stick to it long term. And that's because it doesn't really align with their values and goals. And when we look at the research as well, I've got 3 really interesting papers that I've sort of reviewed that have got loads of, over 20,000 participants that they've looked at. The first is a huge study that's really important for sustainable weight loss, and it's called the National Weight Control Registry Study, which has over 10,000 adults who've successfully lost or maintained 30 pounds for at least 1 year, which is a significant amount of weight. And if you ask anyone who is on a weight loss journey, usually early on, if you said, right, 30 pounds, that's a significant or a huge amount. One of the key things, alongside lots of other things, this isn't the one thing, but it is an underlying principle, really, as we sort of spoke about in the last episode. An underlying principle is adherence, and they found that people who were able to stick to their diet, alongside many other factors such as activity, good sleep, maintaining sort of a healthy balance within their diet, were able to keep that weight off long term. When we have a look at another study called the Look Ahead study, which has over 5,000 adults with pre-diabetes, so a different population. We're not looking at people who've just lost weight, we're looking at people who have a medical condition, and they were either given a lifestyle intervention, so something that I would probably do within the NHS or someone else within a public health program where they give them support with changing their habits, lifestyle. They found that the lifestyle intervention was effective in reducing weight and preventing type 2 diabetes, but only in participants who were sticking to the intervention. Participants who were less adherent or were unable to stick to that diet or intervention did not experience significant weight or diabetes prevention benefits, which isn't a huge surprise. If you're not doing the things that are going to help you lose weight and you can't stick to it, then it's unlikely to give you the benefits that you want. Last of all, we've got a study called the A to Z weight loss study, which is just over 4,500 patients who were randomly assigned different diets. We've got Atkins, we've got a zone diet and an Ornish diet. It doesn't really matter the ins and outs of what they are, but 3 very different diets. What they found from this study was that all 3 diets were effective in helping participants lose weight, but the degree of adherence to the diet was more important than the actual diet that they were given, which is actually really, really mind-blowing, is that all diets are fairly equal if you can stick to them. People will lose weight on whatever diet you give them if they can stick to it, which hopefully should be quite liberating for a lot of people. But again, if that doesn't suit people, then they're probably unlikely to lose weight. So across those 3 papers of 20,000 people of differing back, anyone who tried to improve weight or lose weight or improve their eating habits, the one key thing that was prevalent throughout all of these papers was it's not necessarily the diet that but the ability to stick to it, which is super important. Hopefully that helps with the past episode where we spoke about creating a calorie deficit being super important with weight loss, which it is, but picking the right method that you can stick to enable you to achieve that calorie deficit is equally as important. You can have the perfect diet in the world, but if you can't stick to it, then it's probably not the perfect diet. But if you can stick to your diet and it allows you to be in a calorie deficit long term, then you're going to see those potential health benefits if that's what you're looking for, but also weight loss as a consequence as well. So, key takeaways from this episode are, yes, a calorie deficit is important, but so is being able to stick to the diet that you're doing or the methods and habits that you're implementing that will allow you to lose weight and maintain that long term. So no one diet is the best. Actually, the best diet is the one that you can stick to. Thank you very much for listening to episode 3 of the Balanced Approach podcast. There will be lots of available resources that I'll be linking into future episodes, becoming lots more topics. We'll be offering a different perspective on lots of current or trending topics, which I'm really excited to talk about. But in the meantime, if you have any questions, queries, or would like to reach out to me on social media, please do. It is at Louis Padian Nutrition, which is at LOUISPADIAN Nutrition on all social media platforms, and I look forward to speaking to you in the next episode.